Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. This is Toyin Umesiri. If you're joining, please let me know where you're joining from, your name, and then let me know where you're joining from. This is day 9 of the 10-day transformation journey. Talking about entrepreneurship, business development, global trade, and different sector opportunities. So today we're talking about the agriculture value chain. Yesterday, I talked about the fashion, the business of fashion, African fashion. And tomorrow, I'll be talking about trade and investment facilitation, particularly, working with government, right? A lot of the things I've been sharing really has been things from the classes I teach, master classes, I host global events. So I've been showing people like samples of some of the things happening behind the scenes. So I see Francis. I'm joining from Barcelona. Hello. Miriam, joining from Nigeria. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to you. Richie, where are you joining from, Richie? Thank you so much for joining. I'll get right to it because we only have like 30 minutes. So, the agriculture value chain. This is an area that a lot of people around the world agree is a great opportunity. Yeah, Miriam says my sector, awesome. It's a great opportunity, when it comes to international trade, particularly on the continent of Africa. With Africa still having about 60% of the remaining arable land in the world, agriculture is a top priority sector for, not just Africa, but even global stakeholders that, they think about Africa. The other day, I was in a conversation and someone from India was saying, oh, yes, agriculture. Africa still has virgin land, organic, Africa is still the home of organic. It hasn't been, the soil hasn't been abused with chemicals and pesticides and all of those things. So agriculture on the continent is not just relevant to Africa, but actually global players, particularly also like equipment manufacturers, technical experts that want to be a part of the future in that region of the world. So today I want to just dive deeper. I mean, I'm going to scratch the surface, but there's a lot behind what I'll be sharing. The reason I said agriculture value chain is because when I talk to, depending on the stakeholder I'm engaging with, they only see what they care about, right? They only see their own story. Everybody's so selfish. We only see our own field in the puzzle. But for agriculture to grow, you have to think about the entire chain. So that's the first thing I want to share today. Don't just think about what you are doing, but always understand where you fit in the entire value chain. Because whether you like it or not, upstream, downstream to you is actually influencing your success or lack of it. What do I mean? You have the farm. It's like farm to shelf, right? Farm, processing, storage, distribution, retail, branding, packaging, sales, right? That entire chain. And what is going on is that chain is broken, right? There's a lot of disconnect where you have the farm, the farmers, rural farmers, particularly, farm is still rural, very much rural, right? You don't have the big ones in most places. There are some places like Kenya and South Africa that has major plantation and all of those things. But anyway, most of agriculture in Africa is still rural. And because it's disconnected, we have a lot of wastage and spoilage because between the seasons where harvesting is happening and the time and the big cities where the demand is, that's connecting it to the value chain, transportation, storage, all of those things. That's where the gap is on the continent. And that sector requires heavy investment. Okay. So the first thing I shared was don't think about just you and what you're doing, think about the entire value chain. The second thing I'm sharing is agriculture requires heavy investment. And the third point I'll raise is that because nothing happens in agriculture overnight. So in order for you to attract investment, this is an area where government incentives is the only way agriculture can thrive in any economy, whether US here, where I am here in Chicago, or wherever you are. Agriculture is one of those spaces where, for you to attract investment, the government has to get involved, right? Because investors, this is the long game, right? It's a long game and it has to be incentivized. Otherwise, they'll put their money in other sectors where they can see return, immediate return. So agriculture is one of those spaces where government is government has to be involved. Government has to be involved because it requires a lot of PPP. The land is some of it is owned by the government. Like there's just there's a lot going on in that space. And a lot of times people don't realize it. I just cut through the tape and say it as it is, at least as I've seen it. I've had conversations with key stakeholders, people who do at the front line of all of these things. And the reality is that agriculture requires a lot of heavy investment. Yes, but for you to attract that investment, the government has to play a huge role, a huge mega role. Otherwise, people are just still struggling. And along that line, I'll talk more about this whole government engagement tomorrow, which is the last day. That's how we'll close out this 10-day engagement. A lot of times, I want to say government is this is where I like doing this stuff privately. You see why I don't talk publicly because there's a lot of sensitivity around this thing. But let me see if I can dance around it in a diplomatic way. The African government is working. Okay, they are working. The question is, they may not be working for you. So the question you should be asking is, are they working? You should be asking, who are they working for? And that's what drives foreign aid. Foreign aid is one way of getting African government to work for key stakeholders that are external. So I'll stop there. Okay. There's what I just said, there's a lot beneath that surface. But every time people say African government, I'm like, they are working really hard. They might not be working for you, but they are working for somebody. So if Africa's private sector, which agriculture value chain is heavily, they have heavily invested in, I always preach that the African private sector needs to mobilize itself, organize itself, marshal its resources, and then partner with their own government to make sure that the government incentives are there for them, the local players. Otherwise, those incentives are majorly for, the people they are working for. It's this is the nature of this space, right? Sometimes you have to dance around it. But in my master classes, like I have trade and investment master class, 3 hour master class. Those who want to go into this and know what's going on, yes, privately, we coach them. I teach government, I teach private sector players as well, because for me, it's not a judgment of what is whether it's right or wrong. It's just be aware when you engage or when you go into a room or a conversation, just be aware what's happening in your landscape, how your sector is being influenced, what do you need to do, how do you navigate what it is you're trying to do. And the way I explained this is the analogy I gave. Imagine everybody understands soccer. Here in US, you say soccer. In Africa and other parts of the world, we call football, right? If you have a ball and your goal is to score. You want to win, right? So you're a business owner, you want to score, you want your return on investment. Reality is there are several obstacles, right? The key is you need to know the game. You need to understand the rules of the game. And you need to have a whole strategy. You don't just show up on the stage and start or on the field and start kicking the ball, which is what I see a lot of people do. What I say is know the game you're in, your sector, understand what's going on, the key stakeholders, come up with your own strategy, right? That's why you have a coach, you have a referee on the soccer. You don't just play, you don't say, I'm the best player. You also need to know who are your team members that you're playing the same game, that they're on your side, right? Who are the key people? Because this is not, you can't do it alone. You can't do it alone. This is not a sector you say, oh, it's me. No, no, no. They're upstream, downstream. It's an entire value chain, and you have to have key stakeholders you are working hand in hand with. This is the business of agriculture, right? So using that analogy again, have a know the game, have a strategy, and then execute. execute it properly. Because sometimes you may say, "Oh, I know what I need to do," but you may not have the right skill set. And all of these things, skills and tactics as well. And engaging government stakeholders, ministries of agriculture, all of that is required. Really, I don't know anybody in agriculture that may not be aware of, because government incentives drive priority sectors. So, for example, when they say rice is a priority, as a business person, you need to know, oh, that's a sector that, you know, or they might prioritize, okay, cocoa. If cocoa is a government priority, you can be rest assured that they're putting resources, they're putting things in there. So for you, it's either you influence which sector they are targeting. If it's an important one, they might say, oh, tomatoes, you want to do this. You have to be aware. You have to be aware. That's one of the things I coach my members on. You cannot just be by yourself, doing business by yourself without awareness of the sector. The other thing I'm looking at, so if you're joining again, do drop in the comments or notes. Let me know where you're joining from. And if you have any questions, please let me know because this is going to be short, really 30 minutes, and I'm speaking really fast. Usually in my classes, I slow it down because I'm trying to pass on key knowledge and making sure people grasp it. Most of my classes are very intense as well, and they last hours because there's so much to cover and it's very interactive. Next week, I'm hosting a webinar. This weekend, I'm hosting a session for my members as well. Okay, so the other thing when it comes to agricultural value chain, there are different stakeholders, right? There are also different opportunities for, particularly for international stakeholders, because this is an area when people talk about China-Africa trade, this is an area that creates unique opportunity for non-Chinese investors. Because China is not solving agriculture in Africa. It's not, they've not decided, that's not the space they are in, which then opens up a lot of opportunities for other stakeholders that want to get it. So there's a lot of demand, and the demand is going to keep rising, right? For equipment, for technical expertise, for seed, for knowledge base, for a lot. But here's the kicker. There's always this conversation of who is going to pay for all of these things, right? So when people come in, I mean, agriculture, and I'm sure Miriam, if this is resonating, drop a comment, right? You have land, government will reach out to me and say, Toyin, what should we plant for export? We have land, we have the youth, we have this, we have that. I'm like, yeah. But are you thinking of the entire value chain? Are you thinking about the entire value chain? Yes, you have land. Okay, let's say you plant something, but moving that product to the farm, to the market, for distribution to the global market or even regional market on the continent. Have you thought about the entire value chain? No, no. People don't think about the entire value chain. And that's what breaks things down. For agriculture to grow and emerge and to become a real mature space across the continent, the entire chain needs to be thought through. Yes, investment is required at the farm stage, and we have people invested in that space. But the key is the entire chain. And we've showcased people at the leading front that have made this happen, like Scott Ford, coffee supply chain. It's a lot of, he has invested millions and millions of dollars into getting coffee out of East Africa into global supply chains. It's a lot of work. And that's why there's a lot of heavy lifting, there's a lot of stakeholders, investment required, government has to be, I mean, this is, again, people don't want to hear the truth, but this is a space where there's not much you can do without government engagement, whether at the local level or at the national level. And I bet you there's so many programs happening, but people are not aware, and we have members of ministries of trade and all of those things part of our membership. So a lot of the things I do, if you watch me move, you see that we have a lot of relationships with key stakeholders, particularly in government, African Union, even US government, because this is something that requires a lot of incentive and it's a long-term investment for an investor. Right? Investors will rather go into other spaces that brings quicker return on investment. But again, agriculture is a long game. It's a long game. So I'm looking at time. I see who's they saying he's joining from Ghana. He says he's an agronomist and crop entomologist. and a consultant. Great. Thank you so much for joining. I appreciate that. So yeah, I've been sharing that when I talk about the value chain, most people that I engage with, when we engage individually with stakeholders, everybody's so focused on themselves. Like me, this is what I can do. But I need people to start thinking about the entire chain, upstream, downstream from you. Who are the key stakeholders? Because nothing happens in isolation. If you own a farm and you can't get your products to the market, boom, you're done. That's what causes spoilage, right? So we need technical expertise at all stages of the chain, and we need those stakeholders. And that's why in our community, we try to connect the dots for people. Fun fact, I actually happen to have gone to a University of Agriculture. That's just a fun fact for my first degree. My second degree was here in US, but I went to University of Agriculture, not to study agriculture, but I was computer, mathematics, all of that. But the university is a renowned University of Agriculture. So quite familiar with all of those, like a lot of PhD knowledge experts on agriculture on the continent. So it's not a lack of PhD research scientists, all of that. The gap I'm calling out is the value chain. The value chain is you need knowledge experts, you need investment, you need the government, you need to build out the entire chain, and it requires logistics, storage, agro processing, right? Packaging, branding, marketing, retail, all of those things. And because that chain is disconnected, people are suffering in their own silo space. And part of what we try to do is to get people to start seeing. We have a framework that we use as well. And we want, even particularly government, like 2 days ago, government still reach out, going, I have this person here. What can you do for us? Right? Nazaru. I'm like, yeah, we have this, we have that. I know, but you have to think about the entire chain. Because an investor is saying, if I invest in this region, in this state, if I invest, how easy is it for us to bring those things to the market, whether it's the local market, the regional market, or the global market? Because it's all about consumption. It's all about demand. Demand, in a way, drives supply. Supply sometimes doesn't drive demand. So if the demand is local, which there's a lot of demand for this stuff, quantify that demand. But then, if we're in a rural place in KB or wherever, and we're planting rice, yes, if we only plant and we don't think about processing and storage and transportation and logistics and distribution, then what happens? This is the key. I think that's the key message for today is don't just think about your sector, think about the entire chain. And once we can get people to shift that mindset, then we can start moving on because there are a lot of experts where I am, a lot of they come and say, does Africa want us? I'm like, wait, Africa is still getting there's still we still have to change mindsets here. When they are ready, then we have a lot of experts from I mean, even when I was in Arkansas, agriculture is massive in agriculture. I mean, Arkansas, we talked about catfish, we talked about chicken. The pharmacy of Tyson Foods, 40 billion chicken business, is doing things in Africa. We talked about coffee. So these are practical things that we engage with on our platform. But the key is the recipients of all of this technical expertise and the investment. We still need to make sure we have a renewed mindset, realizing nobody is coming. This is not about nobody's coming to help. The people that are helping, they are helping themselves. Okay, this is where I have to take this private. Anyway, I'm going to be wrapping up now. Any questions? Again, there are a lot of things we do in our my private practice of coaching and guiding, even government officials, because there's a lot of policy implications that has to be put in place. And if you're an investor, you're looking for investment opportunities, definitely the government right now, they're touting, when I say they're showcasing investment sector areas, they're like going in Ghana, we have these, in this state, we have that, in this, does your investment friends? I'm like, yeah, but have you thought about the entire chain? Don't isolate this investment opportunity just to a local level. Some of our members, like one in particular, she's in the shea butter industry, and what we've been doing is helping her connect to the international market. So this is very practical, right? She has the land, she's working with the rural women. But like I said, if that's all she does, if she cannot bring those products to the marketplace, it doesn't work, right? So she's working with rural women. They've just installed stainless steel machines to process, the shea butter for cosmetic industry. So yes. And then the next thing is who's going to buy? So we're connecting to the market, right? So the market connectivity, connecting supply to demand is really, really important in all of these things. So again, I'll stop right there. There are no more questions. Tomorrow I'll talk about trade and investment facilitation, working with government. What does that look like? All of that. So any questions before we wrap up? Or just, I know a lot of times people reach out privately, but be on the lookout for some of the programs we have going on. And if you want to learn more about what we do, please go to nazaro.com or toyinwesiri.com, my own personal page, our website. I'm a business consultant, international trade expert. I coach, I guide. Coaching requires a lot of more support from me, but we also consult to answer questions. Miriam says, short for insightful session. That's it. I usually try to you know, condense this stuff because, and also I try to demystify it, right? A lot of it, yes, it's complex. Yes, it's very intense. I get it, but let's start with mindset, right? Because if you know what you need, then you can get it. But a lot of times people don't know what they need. They say they do, but they don't because it takes nothing happens overnight. I was in a meeting the other day and somebody was like, Toyin, if I come into your network, are you going to do it? I'm like, this is not a light switch. You're not switching. No, it's not a light. There's no light bulb switch. You enter a room and no. We only do business with people we know, like, and trust. And I then use this analogy. I said international trade, global trade is like a genie in a bottle. You know all these Aladdin stories, right? You know the genie, right? You have to rub that genie, you have to massage it before the magic happens. And no, people are not patient enough to build relationship, to create a pitch document, to streamline their process. People just want a light switch. And I'm like, no, keep moving. There's no light bulb switch here. But if you're ready to go the long journey and invest in yourself and do what is needed to actually capture the opportunities you're looking for, then yes, we can work with you. But there's no light bulb switch or, Toy is Google. That's another thing that happens, like ABCD, right? Anyway, I'm just trying to make light of it. But yes, trying to keep it condensed and then the real work happens offline. Like I shared in previous sessions, like you don't become a doctor on social media. That's not where it is. You have to, there's a lot of heavy lifting. And where those conversations are happening that is affecting your sector, it's not on social media. It's behind closed doors, in private rooms, in private conversations that you don't even know what's happening. But people just wake up, they read the newspaper, they read the headline, and they start reacting on Twitter. Yeah, you weren't part of the conversation. They change the policies on you. You weren't part of that. You didn't have a seat at the table. So anyway, I'm just trying to make light of it. I know it's very serious and very intense, but I'm trying to make a light. I'm trying to just talk about it in a way that is not too heavy. But yeah, it's an investment opportunity, an investment sector, right? So international stakeholders that have equipment see this is it's a growing space on the continent. But one thing we're also doing is we're preparing those on the continent to be better prepared to engage international stakeholders because if you come into a deal room with the wrong mindset, it's already failed. It's already failed. And we're not going to be able to connect anybody until they've gone through our program. So our members that have gone through our programs, at that point we can connect them to USAID or different resources out there, or even make calls for them to the government, like agriculture, there's incentives. But until you're ready and prepared, it's a lot of you know massaging and relationship building and making sure you're strategically positioning yourself as a key stakeholders that people can work with, right? People can engage with, people can do business with. It's a lot of that. And tomorrow I'll talk more about working with government, trade and investment facilitation. And again, that's it. Thank you so much. See you tomorrow.